So right now, we have our lovely Annie. And gosh, when did the first book? God, that's been how many years?
When we were in Fayetteville with Dolores.
Yeah, what year was that?
14.
It was, but the books, when we get them,
13,
it's a
I
year
don't know.
before that, so been about 13, I guess,
Yeah.
when we got, okay. So the first conference you did would have been 14.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But Annie is, another one of these special people that, that just sees all these, she talks to all the elementals and sees the elementals and works with the other kingdoms and stuff. And yeah, gosh, that's one of those abilities. I have abilities, but that's not one of them. And we all have different abilities, but that is so special. And it's like, but I don't have that ability yet. Yet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just don't have it yet, but I'm open to it. But it's so special. And what I love is these books are just amazing, and that's what they do, is because that's part of it, is believing. One, you got to believe that it is there, and it's all about the magic, because it's letting that magic in. And I can't tell you, you just get to know Annie, and there's magic. You will believe in magic after you know her. So that's what it's about. And it's this whole other world. So, and what are we saying? We're always talking about, other worlds and other dimensions and other, like, new earths and new things. That's how all this stuff is. Okay? Is that making sense? That's... Yeah, anyway, it'll make sense once you hear. Okay. I know she has a regular 3D world that she lives in too. That's just so funny, because we all do. We have our 3D worlds, and then we have our this world, our magical worlds. And so, but anyway, and we just keep, and these books have all been exploring. And the first book was all about her world, of the growth. I'll let her explain all that. She's much better at it. But it was how her guardian angel is actually the education of her guide, her guardian angel. So that's just, that's what first intrigued. When that first came across Mom's desk, it was like, oh, this is good. This is very different. And then each one has been, I think actually the Dawn book, you said, came way before the other, but each one does the other. And then this one that just came out is the work of a guardian angel. So this is what they're actually doing. So see, they're progressing, and they're showing what they're doing. And then it's really bringing in the elementals and the fairy beings and everything. So that's what's so cool, is showing us this other world. And if you don't think they exist now, you will after this talk, okay? So without further ado, Annie Stillwater Gray.
Thank you. Thank you, darling. Okay. First of all, thank you all for getting up early and being here. Thank you, Ozark Mountain, for changing my life, basically. And I also want to mention the speakers who came before me at this conference, because each one of them have been working with their guides. Now, we all have a guardian angel, a single spirit guide that is signed on to take care of us. Your life guide is what I like to call it. And I'll talk about the books in the order they were done. But first I want to thank Dan Bird. He types, right? And his spirit guides were right there telling him what to type. Carolyn Greer Daly, automatic writing. Her guides are right there, working her hand. Kathleen Martin, she talked about telepathic downloads. I teach telepathy because that's the best way for you to have conversations with your life guide. I encourage everybody here to, how many people are working with their life guide right now? Not just know them, work with them. Can have conversations back and forth. I love it. Every time I speak, there's more, and I love that. And also she talked about having tingling when she works with higher vibrations and hearing tones. And there's a lot about that in these books. And then, of course, Tricia, what can I say about Tricia last night? She was amazing, and she had a tribe of guides around her. I don't know if you saw it, those of you who can see the spirits. I think because she's been ill, she had some extra healing guides with her, but she had a lot of guides on stage with her. So thank you all. And they all did a wonderful job, and I'm very honored to be here, you know. I kind of felt like after Tricia, I'm kind of like the sherbet, you know, that cleanses your palate. So I wear my sherbet jacket here. No PowerPoint. I like to really see you and interact with you. Really, I'm here for you. You know, I mean, if I were someplace for me, I'd be in my garden right now, because in Maine we have a very short growing season and I have to get my beans in. But I'm here for you. And I'm here to encourage you to work with the spirit helpers around you. That's really my thing. And that includes not only your life guide, which I'll talk about, but also the elementals, and particularly the fairies and elves are the ones who are in your garden with you. So those are the ones I focus on. All right, so I'm going to start with the Dawn book, which is the middle one, but it was the one first written. In 1989, I had a really bad year. I was fired. I'm a radio person. I've done radio for many years, and not a real stable profession, and also really not great for women. And I had also had a bad back injury, so I was pretty down. And I was remembering my father, who had a pension, you know, when he retired, and that was never going to happen for me. And I thought, there's no security in this world. I was living in a pre-Civil War house without running water. I had a hand pump. So I had to pump the water and then bring it over to the wood stove to heat it up to do the dishes. And with a back injury, that's not easy. So I was doing that. I was doing the dishes, something so simple, something many of us do every day. And my guide, who is on stage with me, those of you who can see, Darcy in Stillwater, he's quite tall, he started talking to me. Now, I knew it wasn't me, my own thoughts, because he's, for one thing, it's a male voice and he's British. So I heard his accent, and he said, you know, you never listen to classical music. You listen to rock and roll all the time. Why don't you listen to some classical music? Right. So I went, okay. Now that's just pushed me over the edge. I'm sure that I've really lost it now, but he was very patient, and you remember, 89, it was vinyl, right? It was vinyl. I walked in, and being in radio for all those years, I had a wall of vinyl, and I didn't even look. I just walked over, and he put my hand on the one Beethoven record I had. He's saying to me, I'd rather hear Bach, but all you have is Beethoven, so let's listen to the Beethoven. So we did. And from then on, we had this conversation. And so the first thing that happened to me is I heard him, but that has grown, and now he can show me, I see pictures and the whole deal. Telepathy basically is reading energy, and clairaudience, I think, is the most useful, especially with your guide, because you can actually hear specific directions. So I teach that, and I do have a class Tuesday morning. Any of you who want to join me, and we'll go into depth on all of this. So Christmas 1989, if anyone remembers, was a sad day because that was the big uprising in Romania, and they killed the king and his family, and I was very sad, and I cried a lot because I said, this is Christmas Day, and I said, when is the world going to stop being so violent? So I had a good cry, and then I went out for a walk, and Darcy's telling me, listen, I've got to introduce you to someone. Sure, why not? And here comes a master guide. And I was a little bit in awe, and I could tell it wasn't Darcy. First of all, it was when you're communicating with the higher realms, the angelic realms, and the master guides and stuff. They have kind of a timbre or a ringing to their words. And he said to me, the first thing the master guide said was, everything's going to change, and you're going to see it change. Would you like to be a leader in the new time? And I went, what does that entail? I mean, are we talking Joan of Arc or what here? So they said, no, we just want you to write a book. I thought, okay, I can do that. So that was the dawn book. So all of 1990, I got up at dawn every morning, one of the reasons it's called that, and I just wrote what Darcy told me. Darcy and I that work that way. I call it telepathic communication and telepathic writing. It's not automatic writing because I hear him and he tells me and I write it down and I go, you sure you don't want to rephrase that? It'll be better English if we did it, da-da. But he tells me and I write it. That's how all the books were done. Now the dawn book, the information was prepared by the master guides. Darcy studied with them and then he passed the information on to me. Now, what's so wonderful about the dawn book, if you haven't seen it yet, is that it's very simple to understand. Very simple. It's not like, I started on Alice Bailey in the Tibetan, and you have to read the same page, for 3 days to try to even get anything. But this is very easy. And one of the things that really, some of the things I knew in there already, like the chakras and so on, but they have this gift to all of us on how to transform our emotions. Say you're really, really angry. There's an exercise in there, a visualization in there, where you can take all it. First of all, they told me emotions are valuable. They're valuable. People say, I don't want to feel that, but it's valuable. So you take the emotion and you picture it as something, and then it gives you directions on how to transform it into love and compassion. And then you can take some for yourself or send it wherever it needs to go. But you can take that emotion and change it. And according to the information, they didn't really want to give this to humans because they were afraid they would use it the other way, And so it's a responsibility to use all this new information in the Dawn book correctly. It's like the Bible for our times. I mean, I'm not saying it's like the Bible, but it's like an update of information and useful things for now. There's a whole section on enlightenment. If you want to go that route, step by step. All right, so I'm going to read, just to show you. I didn't do this last time, but I'm going to do it today. It's going to show you two things. It's going to show you, first of all, how easy this book is to deal with, to read and stuff. And the second thing is the humor that the guides have, because they have an immense sense of humor. Earth is a learning place. Many understand that fact. Let us add more to this picture. Life on Earth is only one slice of the pizza of a spirit's total evolvement. The other slices have similar ingredients, but exist on levels other than the Earth realm. The slices are basically of equal size or value. The slice that is Earth incarnation is no more or less important than the other slices or levels of learning and evolvement. The other slices contain challenges to stimulate growth and evolvement of the soul, but these challenges are much different from those that exist here on Earth. It's important for each of us to ingest the experience of each slice, to chew and assimilate it thoroughly, to enjoy all the tastes and sensations, to experience each slice as completely as possible. This image of the pizza, though much oversimplified, puts Earth life in perspective. It shows that an incarnation on Earth is but one phase, or one slice, in a larger cycle of evolvement. And Earth life is not an end-all situation, only a step, a phase, a slice of the whole cycle. If we are going to liken the divine cycle of soul evolvement to a humble pizza, then let us at least picture the pie as loaded. There are many, many ingredients on the pie of spirit evolvement, many tastes, many sensations, sometimes a little heartburn and indigestion. As we ingest our slice of the pie in an Earth incarnation, let us chew it slowly and thoroughly, enjoying all the flavors and experiences. If we gulp it down, we do not digest it properly, and what we have taken in is not utilized properly in soul development. And then there's a parenthesis, a spirit parenthesis. Pardon this unpleasant image, but we are dealing with gross matter here, end parenthesis. We might even regurgitate the ingested material in some way which would be seen as a setback on the cycle. And I thank the master guides for that. There's also, toward the end, an excellent section on leaders. We need new leaders. We need new kinds of leaders. You are all leaders in this new time. And it really gives great advice for being a leader in the new time. So that book was done in 1990. And I tried to get it published. I tried to get it published, and I tried to get it published. And finally I said, this information is too important. So I got a bunch of friends together and we made 130 copies. It was enough for me to go out and start teaching out of the book. And then in 1998, I had sold enough and saved the money to make a second edition, all self-published. And I still have a few of those. But then Darcy said to me in the year 2000, Darcy, thank you, Darcy, said to me, write a book about me. If you write a book about me, that'll sell the Dawn book. Well, sure, I'll try anything. So that was the next book, Education of a Guardian Angel. And even though it's about his education and how he was specifically trained, it really applies to all your guides and all the wonderful guides who are in here. They all had to learn, first step, unconditional love, second step, non-judgment, third step, all the tools that they use to help us, reading energy fields and understanding birth imprints and death imprints. The birth imprint is your astrological chart. It makes sense if there's a birth imprint that shows your potential for this lifetime. There's also a death imprint that tells what you carry over. So those of you who help people that are passing over, it's very, very important work. Because the more that they feel loved and the more they feel that they're cherished, the easier it's going to be on the other side. This is a big, thick book. I remember Dolores called me herself and she said, you really have something different there, and not only that, everything you wrote in here goes with what I've found out during, through my research and my writing. And she said, but it's kind of long. So I had to edit out some, because there's, one of the things I love best about this is it really shows how karma works. And when we finished the book, I said to Darcy, I don't really know if I want this to be out in the public, because this is like my karma on a platter. Here am I, and here's all my mistakes, and here's what happened because of them. But he said, a lot of people are going to learn and understand and I don't know, okay, if you put it that way, I guess so. But how spirit guides are trained is pretty much similar for all of you. Darcy died in 1836, and I was born in 1946. So you see, on Earth, time is different for them, but on Earth anyway, it was 110 years before he was ready to take me on as his charge and to sign the contract. So what spirit guides do when you're ready to reincarnate is they sit down with you and they help you write your soul contract. What are you going to accomplish for yourself this lifetime? And this does not have anything to do with material things. It has to do with your soul evolving. So you have your list of things. Usually number one is unconditional love for everybody. And then from that is designed your birth chart, and then you pick your parents, right? You knew that. You knew you picked your parents, right? Yeah. I had a choice of 20. And the thing is that they all had the same problem. So it didn't matter who I picked, I was going to get the same situation. So I think also what really comes through, and there's a lot of great small stories within this, because it talks about the different lifetimes that Darcy and I lived together and how our karma evolved through those lifetimes. And so what's great is, I didn't know about some of these civilizations. He was telling me about them. There's a South American one, there's a couple in China. And so there's some really good stories within this. So this is like a cosmic parable. You can learn about how your guides were trained, and still there's great stories. But my favorite thing about this book is it really shows how love knows no boundaries. It goes between all the walls, all the barriers, all the veil, everything. Love goes everywhere. So if you're missing someone, if someone's passed over and you really miss them, then just send love, because you know for sure that they get it. Now, that being said, I'm going to say that my mom passed in 2007. She was a kidney transplant. She was a very brave woman. She lived to 85. And what Darcy told me a story this morning. She said that when Dolores passed over, my mother was there to greet her, along with many other spirits, of course. But my mother went up to Dolores and said, "Thank you for helping my daughter." So I do believe that Dolores and my mother both are looking in today at this talk and at this conference. Yep, this was my mom's. Now we get to the new book, and I want to spend the most time here. Now, once Dolores said she wanted Education of a Guardian Angel, then of course I started lobbying for the Dawn book, because Education of a Guardian Angel ends with the writing of the Dawn book. So they're a pair, really. One's a workbook and one's a story, and with a lot of information. Okay. So once that all happened, and Dolores called me and said, we do a little editing and we'll take your book. I said, okay, Darcy, we're done, yay. He said, no, we're not done. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, because we have a project, and it might take a few years. Okay, what's this now, more books? He goes, eventually. He says, we want you to work with the elementals, and specifically the elves, because the elves are the ones who really care for the flora. The elves and the fairies care for the flora. Now, the elementals, if you don't know, are called that because they are beings that are associated with each of the elements: fire, air, earth, and water. And I'm really dealing with the earth ones here because, and if there's any gardeners here, I encourage you, yes, to work with them, They will help you in anything that you're doing. Okay, this is going to take a while, so I'm going to take a sip of water here. Also on stage with me is the beautiful being right here. Her name is Emerai. She's my daughter. The first thing that Darcy told me is that the elves really wanted to have my help with something. I said, well, And I wish they weren't called that, because elves have such a, already people have images of elves because of Santa and because of Lord of the Rings and all this, but they really are beings that are very tied to the earth, and the gnomes are as well. And the gnomes are the easiest to see, if those of you want to try to see them, because they have the densest energy. But the elves are the ones that I've been working with. So Darcy said to me, okay, the earth needs help. The earth really needs help right now, and the elves want to actually start working with humans. Now, this is a long time coming. The elves have been avoiding humans for a while. We haven't been that kind to the planet. And the other thing that's happening, and you may have heard of this too, is that there are 7 avatars that are being born now to help us through this transition into the new time, the new golden age. Now, the elementals are spirit beings. They're right here on Earth. They're part of our world, and they tend to the flora. The elves mainly take care of the perennials, the trees, the bushes, the bulbs, that sort of thing. And the fairies are more with the annuals. The fairies are really into seeds, by the way, in case you didn't know that. I'm just learning about fairies, because there's another book coming called Joys of a Guardian Angel, which is has more to do with the elementals and the fairies. Anyway, an avatar, there's the the movie and so on, but it really means a God coming down in bodily form to earth. So what this means is that there are 7, one for each different level, so that means there'll be a human one. That means that there's a very highly evolved spirit, very highly evolved soul, like Jesus, will come down again and help, guide the earth through this upcoming transition. All right. So the 7 leaders are all female. Are you ready for that? And so I was asked to usher in the elfin avatar, that one. And that's the one I'm really going to talk about, because that's the one I know. The others I don't really know about, though I'm going to try to learn. Spirit guides not only assist us, they also assist the other beings on this plane. So they often assist elves and other elementals when they come in. All right, so Darcy said to me, how'd you like to be your mom? Wait a minute here. First of all, I was like, 50-something when he asked me this. And I said, well, I don't understand this, Darcy. I mean, first of all, I didn't mention this, and some of you have heard me talk before. You know that I actually married Darcy in 1991. So he is my spirit husband. I also have an earth husband, which is actually the best of both worlds. So, I mean, we're married, so this is not untoward at all. I mean, he was saying, okay. So I said, well, why? And he says, well, look, she has a purpose. This avatar has a purpose. She wants to be able to become visible to humans and be able to communicate with humans. And I said, well, that's a tall order. He said, that's okay, because humans are evolving and fast. You know, they say we use only a small part of our brains. Well, it's waking up. Our brains are waking up more and more. The telepathic center, right? It's waking up. So if you have telepathy going for you, you can communicate with anything because it's a way to read energy. All right. So he worked on me. He explained things over and over again. And finally I agreed because it's hard to say no to Darcy. It's just hard to say no to spirit when they ask you to do something. And he did take time and explain it to me. And so I've got one more card. Here we go. So the project for the elementals was very important to me and important to my heart. And Emerai is amazing. Her book basically tells where she came from. Who was she before? What kind of energy does she bring into the earth? How, you know, she is just so talented already. She brings in the ability to talk with everything in nature. One of the lifetimes she lived was as an Aquarius in the Cree Nation, and he was a twisted hair, and he'd go from tribe to tribe, and he was all on his own, and he never carried weapons. He only carried stories. And the way he protected himself was just to be able to read everything around him. He knew when trouble was coming. He would be able to climb a tree or, you know, whatever to get out of the way. The other thing he was able to do, and this blows my mind, and I wish I could do it, he'd go into a new tribe, because he traveled around. He'd go into a new tribe, and they would be speaking a different language. And he would just say a prayer, and he would adapt and be able to understand them. And he'd start telling stories to the children. So this is the being that we have walking among us now. She was born a month after the 9/11 attacks. I didn't understand that for a long time. But think about that day, and I think I might have talked about this last time I was here. The world, compassion just poured out of almost everybody's heart for all the people undergoing and suffering from the different attacks and so on. And all the planes were grounded. There was peace and quiet, and compassion surrounded the earth. And she needed that. She needed that to be able to come in. She's a very highly evolved being, and she needed that compassion and that quiet to actually come down. And then she was born, she's going to be 16 on October 30th. Feel free to celebrate, have a sweet 16 party for her. But she's starting to work now, and here are some of the things that I've noticed in my own. I have 5 acres of land in Maine. Like I said, I should be getting the beans in. And one of the first things I did when I bought the land was plant an orchard. And ever since she's been there, the orchard has been crazy. Just their pear trees are so loaded with pears, they drip to the ground. The plums, just, you know, I have to go out and pick them just because they're waiting. I have to prop the limbs up. I have been having a little bit of I've been having the blues a little bit because of a medical condition, but I'm learning that I think I can change that. And so they were cheering me up, and Darcy and Emerai, both on stage with me today, did something amazing. Lily of the Valley is one of my favorite things. And I was coming home from doing a radio show. I still do lots of radio, in case you ever want to listen. And I was getting the mail, and all of a sudden the whole air filled up with the smell of Lily of the Valley. It was so amazing. Where's it coming from? And I walked across the road. I mean, I live on a dead-end road. And there underneath the biggest maple tree was just thousands and thousands of lily of the valley that they had put there, that they had brought me from I don't know where. We had a little incident ourselves. I thought I had lost something, and I was very upset because it was made by a friend of mine. I'll show it to you. If you come to my workshop on Tuesday, we'll play with it. But you know I'm into angels, obviously. I thought I had lost it. I couldn't find it when I got here, and I wanted to show it to you all. It's a pendulum that's an angel. See that? Put it in the light so you can see it. Isn't that nice? And I really thought it was gone. I didn't, they searched my bag. I thought somebody liked it. I didn't know what happened to it. It was gone. And Donna and I searched the room, and we pendled with her pendle about it, and it was, oh, nope, it's not here. And then last night, right before we went to bed, I reached in my robe, and there it was. And I didn't put it there. I don't know how it got there, but it was amazing. So anyway, yeah, come to my class if you can, Tuesday morning. All right. I'm willing to take questions at any time because I can tell stories forever here. But I am really here for you. So if you have anything you'd like to ask me or about any of these books or anything that I do, please just ask. Yep, MRI's birth was pretty amazing. It was an energetic pregnancy. I'm sure you're curious about that because it's all energy, right? It's all energy. But she's a being. And just like the soul enters the fetus, I think they have to have at least 3 days. This is humans now, 2 weeks to 3 days bonding time with because you know why the soul doesn't come in before then? Because things could change with the mother. If, say there's a mother that was eating very healthy, and so there were several souls that were looking at her to be their mom, and all of a sudden, something happened in her life, maybe her man left or something, and she started drinking. That would be an entirely different atmosphere for the soul to come in. So those souls that have been looking at her would probably leave, and there'll be other ones that need that situation for their own karma would decide to come in, right? So that's why, the souls don't enter until right before birth, 2 weeks to 3 days. And that's the way it was with MRI as well. I think it was 2 weeks. I remember just having to stay grounded. And I remember Darcy's telling me what to do. He says, go out in your garden and put your fingers in the soil. Just to keep you grounded, because the energy was so intense. When her essence came inside me, it was so intense. So I had to really focus on staying grounded. I did a lot of deep breathing. And I'm so glad that everything worked out okay with her. By the way, the next book, Joy's, that I'm about 2/3 of the way through, is all about her brothers and sisters, because altogether I did this 8 times. I know. The first 4 are all communicators, so they're here to actually work with you, with all humans, with everybody. And the second 4 are healers. We can't have enough healers on this planet right now. We cannot have enough. And they're just babies still. So they're the older ones, they're in their teens now, so they're starting to get busy. And they will be here. The other thing about elves, too, and all elementals, is they stay a long time, right? They come and they stay, middle age is like 400 years. So they stay 800, 1,000 years, at a time. So that's why it's so important to get to know them. They have incredible wisdom. And MRI is going to be able to really help us all heal this planet along with the brothers and sisters. There's 4 of each, 4 males, 4 females. So the boys came in as twins. So that's the next book, though. All right. Questions? Come on, people. I'm here. Ask me anything. Yes? Got a mic for this gentleman?
How can we communicate directly with the elementals? I've been drawn to them since I was a little kid. I'd love to read stories about fairies and the elves and all of that. But how can we communicate and start to see them if they're on a different level than we are? How can we start a communication process with them?
Sure, good question. All right, well, everybody's different, because some of us communicate with spirit through our intuition, some visually, some with audio you hear. But I just suggest being with the flora. One of the sections in the Dawn book talks about lying down with the flowers. Of course, this is, you just have to have your tick spray on. I know. Remember we used to garden in shorts and sleeveless blouses? Remember those days? Oh, no, gone forever. All right, but just be with the flora and also ask. Especially if you're growing something. Do you have an orchard or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Spend time in the orchard and ask to meet the elves that are helping you tend the orchard. And be patient, and it's all about raising your personal vibration. A couple of the speakers talked about that. And that's another great thing about the Dawn book, is it has exercises for that, and we'll go over some of that in my class. But a deep breath, and just ask for them to show themselves or make themselves known somehow. Whatever works for you, and it could even be a dream. So if you ask, Spirit will answer. So, and that's what I tell people too. Whatever you want, whatever you need. If you want to know your guide better, if you need help with something, ask. And I also suggest that you write it down. And when you do, be very specific. I mean it too. Look at what you write down and be extremely specific, because you may get something you don't realize. And I've used this example before, but it's a really good one. I had a friend who was a doctor, and she really wanted to find a companion. So she had her list of everything she wanted in her perfect companion, or one anyway that she could, be with. But she forgot to put unmarried. So she met this great guy, but he was married. So she started again, top of the list, unmarried. Listed everything again, started again. But the thing was, she put navigated money well. Instead of in the present, she put it in the past, so she met this guy who used to be a millionaire, but he lost it all. So, you be careful how you phrase everything. Because they pay attention. They pay attention to what you ask for. The one was talking about the fellow that invited in the UFOs. Be careful what you ask for. And also use protection, really. We're talking about energy. You want always the most positive experiences. So when you ask, of course your life guide loves you immensely. They have a creed. They're never allowed to scare you or frighten you or do anything to harm you. They may trick you from time to time. That's just to get you back on the right path. But you can really trust your life guide. But you should still use protective light when you're working with spirit. Put yourself in a sphere of golden light, white light, whatever you prefer, and use it all the time. There's a lot of energy out there, and you want your experiences to be very positive, and you want to move forward with your work and your soul growth in a very positive way. There's going to be challenges, of course there are. So. All right, questions? Yes. She's coming around. How we doing back there, guys? Good? Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what you know about these avatars.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could name them all. Obviously there's a human one. There's one for the fairies. There's one for the elves. So there's 7 altogether, and I hope by the time I hopefully come back, Julia, with the 4th book in the series, which will complete the series, that I'll be able to really give you specifics. But the whole reason they're here is to help us through this transition. And some of them will stay longer than others, obviously, because of the life expectancy of humans. The one that comes in as a human will probably be able to live 90, 100 years, but then the one that comes in, like Emerai, is going to be here for a long time, 1,000 years. So, but they need to hit all the different levels of Earth experience to be able to help us move through. And I'm going to ask for more specifics. Today I really wanted to pay attention to Emerai because she's here. If you have any questions for her, you can ask her that too. Yes?
I'd like to know how the elementals feel about artificially created crops, the GMO plants. Do they honor those? Will they work with those?
They're not happy about it, but they love the planet, and they love the earth, and they love all the flora. So they have particular compassion for those because they have been humanly changed, and so they don't ignore them, but they certainly are not happy about it. They have such big hearts. That's the thing about the elves. They're so loving and everything, and we've been we haven't had this connection with them, and now we can have it, and it's such a valuable thing, such a valuable thing. I hope that helped. I don't know. No, they don't ignore them, but they're not happy that it happened. Yes.
I have a question. You said you work in the garden, but with the flora. On the fauna, since there's so many birds, I have seen that my garden has been a heaven now for birds. Have you have any interaction with those, with the ones that take care of the birds?
Yes, indeed. The spirit guides use animals and birds all the time. One of the things I tell people is that even if you don't have telepathic communication with your spirit guide, that's okay. You want to know your guide. You say you want to know your guide. That's step one. And then your guide will send you signs and information. Who was it that talked about? Was it Dan that talked about signs? You look for signs, and birds are wonderful because, see, the spirit guides, and again, that's in the education book, it shows how spirit guides use birds especially because birds can move really quickly and can bring messages. So if you're a bird person, always watch for the birds. And Emerai's bird is a raven, believe it or not, and her two brothers have crows as their bird. And the raven is extremely magical, and the whole time that I was pregnant with her, the ravens were all around my house. They would fly over and talk to me. That time I talked about with my fingers in the garden, the ravens were flying around me. So the birds are great. All animals are signs, and they all are connected with the spirit and with spirit guides, and with the elementals too, yeah. Anyone else? Yes. Well, I'll talk about spirit guides. That's my favorite thing because I really encourage each and every one of you to make your life guide your best friend and your partner. And your spirit guide is always there. Now, in the creed, it says that they have to allow you privacy if you wish it. So therefore, you can ask and say, please step back, because otherwise they'll be right, like Darcy's right here. They'll be right there. And a great example of that is I was speaking to a sophomore high school class. My topic was women in the media, right? Because I was on the radio. I've been on the radio since 1974. Still on, have my own syndicated show. Still on, doing live radio, all for free. But that's the way it is. I used to do commercial radio, but they never paid that well, and it really sucks now. So. So I was sitting in this class, supposed to be talking about women in the media, and the first thing I said was, don't do it. Don't get into radio. And then I started talking about astrology, because I am an astrologer also. I was an astrologer in Egypt, I come to find, and I was an astrologer to the Pharaoh, and he would not make a decision without me and this other astrologer's input. So, in fact, I was even murdered in that incarnation because he listened to me so much that they wanted me out of the way. Anyway, so I started talking to these 15-year-olds about astrology, and I could see that they were way more interested than anything I could say about being in the media. So there they are. Okay, now they're more interested. Talk about astrology. Great. Then I started talking about spirit guides, and they were on the edge of their seats. Yes, I got them now. And so there's this one wiseacre. You've heard me tell this story. Sitting in the back of the class, he's tipping his chair back, and he goes, "Tell me what I'm thinking." Right? So, Darcy's there right there. He helps me out. He gives me an image of a motorcycle. And I said, "You ever thinking about your motorcycle?" He goes, "No, motorbike." But I'm not done yet. That same classroom. If only the teacher knew how many times I talked about that. He was a guy who liked to get people in and to talk so he could listen and he didn't have to do anything, Sociology class it was. So oh, you do that too? Okay. And so there was this young woman who about, I don't know, she's 15, so a young teen, sitting halfway back one aisle. And I'm not a voyeur. I don't go around seeing people, looking at people's guides, although I did happen to notice all of Tricia's last night. But, there was her guide, and I usually, if Darcy shows me a guide, I should say something, So I said to her, she raised her hand, she said, "I have a guide." "Yes." "He's with me all the time?" I went, "Yes." In fact, I said, "He looks like one of Robin Hood's merry men. He's in hand-sewn clothing. It's all brown and green. He could melt into the forest, and described him. And he has a message for you." He says he goes with you on your walks after school. Her mouth dropped right open. She came from a troubled home, I learned later, and just used to throw her books in the door and just disappear, and no one knew where she went. So the fact that I said that, So she was sitting there thinking about it while I was talking about other things, and then she raised her hand again and said, "So my guide's with me all the time?" I said, "Yeah, that guide is signed on to be your helper." And she said, "Does he go in the shower with me?" 15, So I went, "Now you can ask him not to get in the shower, it's all right." Yeah, I know, but bless her heart, I bet it helped her, to know that she had that kind of spirit friend, somebody to protect her and be with her, in tough times. We all have that. That's the good news. We all have that. And your guides will go out of their way to help you all. And they offer many things. Again, we're going over this in my class. I'll give you all the details about the different things that they do. But even protection, they put protective light around you. You can use distraction. If there's trouble coming your way, your guide can provide a distraction so it moves off and doesn't come right at you. It's really, really, honor them because they love you. And you know what? The spirit guides think we're the brave ones because we're in human bodies. Being in a human body is not easy, right, folks? Yes. It's not an easy thing. And we age, and there's always something coming down the line. So, they think we're the brave ones. And also, we're the ones that can change things. They can only help us see what to do. They can't change it. We have to change it because we're physical matter, and we're living in a 3D world. So we're the ones that have to change it. We're the ones that need to heal the earth. We're the ones that have to change the scene. And we can do it. And they'll help us, especially with hard decisions. They can really help. Now, the pendle that I had, I'll get it out again just because I'm so happy I found it. But if you just want to get started and you don't have the telepathic communication or the audio connection, audio clairvoyance, you can just start by using a pendle. And of course it's yes or no, but I'll show you. When you get your pendle, and you may have one already, the first thing you want to do is ask your guide to show you what yes is, because it's different for everybody. All right, show me yes. So for me, it goes in a circle like that. That's yes. And then you say, show me no. See how it wiggles in place? That's no. And I'm not moving this. So it's a very useful way to and when I'm like I taught it that's how I met Donna here. I taught in Calgary. I was there for a week teaching. And so they took me to they all wanted to get pendles, so we went to a gem store. And in a situation like that, it's noisy, there's lights, there's people coming and going. It's just so easy to use a pendle because you can just, there it is, it's something physical and you don't have to, bring yourself to center and have quiet, ask for a message, So it's just easy. But also you don't want to depend on it too. You want to make your own heart-to-heart, mind-to-mind connection with your guide. And like every day. I have Darcy every day with me, helping me with whatever. And boy, you had to help me with the plane flight down here. Hello? Hi. Got a question?
For the last 2 years, I've been hearing things like I'll have my head in the car and I'll hear somebody say, clear as a bell, hello. And I look around everywhere. I'll walk out to the road. There's nobody there. Or other times I'll be halfway asleep. In other words, I'm in the process of waking up. Mm-hmm. And I will hear people greet me for the day.
Yay!
What is that? Is that going to be like the elementals and fairies there?
That's your life guide.
Those are those.
Yeah, the life guide is always first because the life guide is almost like I said, it's like a traffic cop. A lot of people have more than one guide working with them, but the life guide has to give the okay because that guide is responsible for you. That guide has signed on the line.
So if he comes to the door in my little thing here, it's okay to open the door and let him in?
As long as you know it's your life guide. Your life guide doesn't need a door anyway. No, but your life guide comes first, and then after that, all right, so when I was the very first time, I think it was the first time I was here, which was a few years ago when we were down in Fayetteville, there was a very handsome man, gray-haired man. He stood up and he said, "I think my life guide left me." I said, "What?" "No, they don't leave you." He said, "Yes." He said, "I was a professional golfer, and I knew that my guide was helping me make those plays because I was always better. All the shots were better than I thought I could ever do. So I know it was my guide helping me." I went, "Well, great." He said, "But I retired." I said, "Well, no, your life guide didn't leave you. Your life guide probably brought another guide on board to help you while you were doing the circuit." He played golf, professional golf all around the world. And then when you retired, that guide went on to help somebody else. So your life guide is still there. So he felt better about that. But so you have, like for instance, if you're a first-time parent, they will often bring in some sort of nanny guide or some sort of help with parenting. If you change jobs, your guide will bring in someone to help you with that. I mean, your guide has certain skills, but they might not have exactly what you need at the time, and they'll bring other guides in. Like I said with Tricia, she had a lot of healing guides with her. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Annie, thank you. This has been very informative and excellent.
Thank
I
you.
had a question about what is it that makes you feel most fulfilled? And I'm thinking like in a spiritual manner. And do you have any suggestions or wise counsel for us on how we can feel the most fulfilled, in our daily lives, I guess?
Well, of course, it's different for everyone. Thank you for the question. I'll tell you about me, but also I would say everybody needs to have just a little quiet time away from devices and so on and so forth, because if you want to hear what your guide has to tell you, you need to give them time and space to do that. Either going for a walk, or just being out in nature, or just meditating by yourself. I can't tell you that. I'm sure most of you are meditators, or at least have given it a go. For me personally, it's singing. I sing lead in a Western band. I write cowgirl songs, and my band just has a new CD out. My band is called Merry-Go-Round Up, and I've written songs like Tough Cowgal and Talking to My Horse and stuff like that. That's really fun, and I sing with two other women, and my husband plays guitar. And that's really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to a whole summer full of, and I'm in Maine. I used to sing with an a cappella band, but where do you sing? They not, so now that I can sing at fairs with this band, and it's still great harmonies, in the tradition of Sons of the Pioneers, those of you who know. And we started off doing Gene Autry tunes, and now we're doing a lot of original stuff, but we still do some Gene and some Roy Rogers and stuff. And it's really fun, and that fulfills me. And writing songs is my favorite thing to do. But it's going to be different for everybody. But I do think you'll find a lot of fulfillment just with a little bit of quiet time with your guide. Your guide is right there. Acknowledge that. Your life guide is your personal guardian angel. When Dolores and I were talking about the education book, I had a different name. I called it My Guide, My Angel. And she said, "No, that doesn't say what it is." So it's okay, Training of a Spirit Guide. That does say that in small print at the top. But she said, let's use the word guardian angel because people are more familiar with it, and that's what they are. They are taking care of you. They're guarding you. They're protecting you. They're helping you. So let's call it Education of a Guardian Angel. So that's what the series is now. It's the Guardian Angel series. And it's really, I'm the guinea pig. They're using me as an example, but you can glean so much information from it for yourself. A lot of the stuff applies to everybody. Absolutely everybody. If you need healing, ask for it. The spirit guides like to heal at night, and they also like to do the four-way healing, where your life guide would be at your head, kind of directing everything. Then there'll be a guide at your feet, and there'll be a guide on either side. And while you're sleeping, they will help, take out the stress or relieve whatever condition you're trying to heal. And you'll feel so much better in the morning. Ask for it. Ask for the four-way healing. Ask your guide to bring in whatever you need to feel better about whatever's going on in your life, and you will get it. Now, it could come in surprising ways. It's sometimes people say, well, I don't hear my God. What can I do? It's all right, just ask anyway. Write it down. And you'll get the information you need, or you'll get the help that you need. And I think, Julia, you're the one that says it 24 hours or something? Is that you that said that? You get something in 24 hours if you ask?
So, like, usually I would get 3 confirmations within a 24-hour period.
All
yes.
right.
Mhm.
I thought I heard that about you.
Yes.
So there you go. So you can really start today working with your guide if you haven't already. And if you don't, I for years I did readings. I kind of stopped. I do them in my class though, in my workshop. But I stopped because I was getting people coming to me for readings that weren't really taking it seriously. They wanted to know if they were going to date the guy down the block, and I'm like, well, okay, but we're talking about your soul here. I mean, kind of, don't you want to know about your, what you're here to do, and da-da-da. So, but I prefer teaching. To me, it's up to you to do the work. It's up to you to find the joy. It's up to you to have the fun of being with your spirit guide, because it is. And Darcy and I have had some great times. And he's also got a great sense of humor. And I'll tell you that. I'll tell you a story about that. And I don't know if I've told it here or not yet. Don't forget he's British. So very wry wit, as they say. So there is in Solon, Maine, where I live, is along the Kennebec River, and there used to be a railroad there, and they've made it into a walking path, which is very nice. And so I like to walk there because, especially with my back injury, it's nice to be flat. It's very hilly in Solon. We're in the foothills of the mountains up there. So I'm walking along, and the first thing Darcy says is, how would you like to see a gnome? And I said, yes, let's see a gnome. So he said, okay, scan. And I scanned, and sure enough, wasn't there a fuzzy spot? I could see right where the gnome was, how tall he was and everything, because there was a blur in the landscape. The energy was right there. So I said, hi, gnome, and we went on, and then he said, how would you like to see a very holy place? I went, oh, yes, a holy place. I'd love to. There's a holy place around here. So we walked further along, and then he said, okay, go toward the river. Walked into the river, and there was this big pine tree that was leaning out over the river. I went, and I saw it, and I said, is this it, Darcy? Is this it? Yes. So I walked out, and I looked down, and the earth had fallen out between the roots, and so there were holes everywhere. But that's not the end of the story. A couple of years later, I did a little mini class with a woman and her 2 daughters, and it was on that same river. They lived up the river on the other side, up in Bingham. And it turns out that they had spread the father's ashes at that very spot. So you see, it was a holy place, too. So there you go. Darcy's he's laughing now. He's having a good time. He's glad you're all here. And Emerai is amazing, because she doesn't often travel with me because she's really more comfortable at home, in my orchard and around. But she really wanted to come today, and because this is her book, so she wanted to be here. Any questions for her? For Darcy? For anybody? Aha! Yes.
This is a selfish question because my birthday is also October 30th.
Oh, nice.
So I would like to know the significance of her choosing that date.
Well, it is the beginning of Scorpio from an astrological point of view. So it's double Scorpio. If anybody knows astrology, it's very, very emotional. So it's all about heart and really intense emotions and heart. And she has that for the planet, and for all of us who are trying to improve things on the planet. And also, it's a very powerful sign. You know that, I'm sure. It's one of the 4 power signs. It's a fixed sign, and it's power of the water. So water is very precious, I would think, to you and to her as well. And a lot of times, we go to the river or we go to a lake or something, because it's very important to her. But it is a power sign, and it's all about deep emotions and big heart. Scorpios do tend to play it close to the vest. and unless you had like a Pisces rising or something where you'd really like, still the deep emotion's there whether you show it or not. And that was, I was surprised she picked that day. I said, please don't pick Halloween.
I wanted to go, it's two questions. First, I wanted to check for house, fairies, or elf. I remember having a brownie at my house, so I wanted to ask you about that. And then I wanted to ask you about the significance of the crow, if you could expand on that, because all of a sudden I have crows visiting me now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the fairies, I'm just starting to learn about the fairies. The brownies is a type of fairy. And they're really into seeds, and sometimes you see them depicted wearing like a half of an acorn for a hat or on a leaf or something, but the fairies are really into seeds, and I can't tell you how important seeds are. I have friends right now, I live in near the town of Skowhegan, Maine. There's only one Skowhegan in the world. It's an Indian name. And there's a woman there who bought the old jail, and she's repurposed it into a grist mill. And so she is now hiring people to grow grains there in Maine, where they haven't grown for years and years, decades. And the whole idea of saving heirloom seeds and passing them on, some of you may know people who do that or do it yourself. It's very important. We're losing varieties left and right. Every year we lose more. There used to be, I think, 270 varieties of cauliflower, and now there are 7, something like that. I mean, I'm not sure about those numbers, but it's that kind of drastic reduction, and a lot of that's due to the GMO that you were talking about. And the seed companies just choose the ones that work the best. The heck with the fact that you like these heirlooms better. I also befriended a greenhouse. I do a syndicated show where I interview people and talked about things. I did one about putting the garden in. That's how you say it in Maine, the garden. And this guy runs a greenhouse, 10 greenhouses, and so you can go to him and say, I really like this variety, would you start it for me? And he has enough room to do that. So he has 25 different heirloom tomatoes in his greenhouses. People like that who keep it going, keep the seeds going, it's very, very important. So the fairies are into that. And crows are, all the birds, crows are so smart, first of all. They're very smart. They may not have the prettiest call, and they may not be the as colorful bird, but they're really smart. And when they come to visit you, they like you. You've got good energy if the crows are hanging around you. My 2 boys, after Emrai, the twins were born, and they have crows all around them all the time. And I always plant something for my elfin children. I planted white roses for Emrai, and for the boys, because they were born in April, I planted forsythia, and I put crow feathers around the bottom for them. And their stories in the next book, but I will say that one of the things when I'm bringing in an entity with Darcy, and it was important that we were both involved, because they needed me as an earth to ground them, and for them to understand what the human experience is. In order for them to communicate with us, they needed to understand. So they needed to go through me to understand that. And they're raised in a nursery by the elves. I don't raise them because what do I know about raising an elf? But I still let them come through me for that experience. And I always learn about who they were before. And so the twins, I will give you this little hint about the next book. The twins, Ozark and Ulari, one was King Arthur and one was the legend, the person who became known as Robin Hood in legend. And what's great is they tell me their story, and it's the real story. It's there through their eyes, or actually it comes from their spirit guide. Their spirit guide usually comes to me and says, I helped him when he was King Arthur, and this is how it happened, and this is my part. That's what's great about talking with the guides, because it's all from their perspective. All of these books are written from the perspective of the spirit guide, not mine. I'm the scribe. I know I'm the human person here telling you about it, but it's all from the spirit guide perspective. The 2 guardian angel books are Darcy talking, so you'll really get to know him and love him. He's humble, he's smart, and he's got a great sense of humor. And then, of course, the Dawn book was prepared by the Master Guides, so that's in their words. And anything I didn't, when I did that Dawn book, anything I didn't understand, I asked them. I said, explain that better. I don't understand that. I want everyone to understand everything I put in here. So I hope you understand it too. If you don't, I have cards. Come see me at my table and I'll give you my card. Please keep in contact with me. I love it. You know, I'm good at email. Anybody else? How are we doing? Okay, got a fellow right down here in front. Thank you all for being here. I know it's early. Thank you. It's early for me. I'm a singer, right?
You've been talking about birds, and when my wife and I bought a beautiful hilltop in about 30 miles from here, south of here, we thought, oh, we have this beautiful eagle's view and these soaring birds, and it turned out they were all vultures.
Okay.
And we, then we lovingly call our place Vulture View, but I think it's such a graceful bird, but I don't think it gets much respect. Can you
You're
talk
correct,
about the
yeah,
vulture?
it is. And you know, they all, everything has their place, and certainly the vultures do too. You know, they help keep everything cleaned up. Bless their hearts. That's nice. When I finally did my dream, at that old Civil War house I talked about. The reason I bought the land and bought that place is because it's a south-facing hill, and I wanted to build a passive solar house, which I have now done with my husband. And the day we moved in, which was New Year's Day, an eagle circled right overhead, saying, "Welcome, welcome." It was great. So yeah, watch the birds. They will. And yes, you're right. They need more respect. They help keep the earth clean. Bless their hearts. Yes, over here.
After you've seen the birds, how do you know what they mean?
Well, first of all, see what your intuition tells you. Also,
Well, I mean, we've got some vultures over there.
also think about what the bird does, and also there's a lot you can get. You can really get into this because look at whether it's flying left to right or right to left. I had an owl fly in front of me in the daytime, and right after that, I had a terrible argument with a really good friend of mine, and we were never really healed that all the way. Also, another time I used to work at this radio station. A couple times I've worked at these radio stations up on these hills, these little trailers, you know. And I was driving home, and all of a sudden there's a hawk, and it's flying right next to my window like this as I'm driving. And I'm like, whoa, what does this mean? And it turns out that the station was on fire. The station was burning. So sometimes you don't know till later what they're telling you, but the thing is when you do have some kind of real close encounter like that with a bird or an animal, pay attention. That's what it's saying. Pay attention. And then, you know, maybe you'll get the answer for what it is, because it's going to be different all the time, you know, what it means.
If we're going to look at that, when I was leaving to come here, and I was waiting for my friend to come out, and 3 bluebirds, and I thought they were extinct. And I called somebody, but there were 3 of them circling around me, and I've never seen them before, and I think that was an omen of good things happening.
Absolutely, you are so fortunate, because they're not everywhere. So
No.
bless you. That was really good. You're right. That's really good.
So
And your guide might have brought them just to cheer you up. It's possible.
That's true. In the mornings, that's not the best.
Anyone else? All right.
I don't know if you saw my presentation, but bluebirds led me to my home. My guides told me that the bluebirds would lead me, and sure enough, they did. And the first day that I was in before I really moved in, and I was painting the room upstairs, and I had all the windows open for ventilation, and I turned around and they say bluebirds really are just usually 2 at a time. I had 6 bluebirds on the ledge of the window watching me paint.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's terrific. That's wonderful. That's really great. I know that Dolores really liked she would talk about the redbirds, the cardinals, yeah. So,
I
yeah.
don't have any
so-
sound. Isn't that the saying, bluebird of happiness?
Yeah.
Isn't that a
Yep.
saying, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, returning joy, yeah, is what she's saying.
So your
Okay, they're
guides
about
will bring you
happiness,
things to
yeah.
cheer you up. So so that's often the case. Listen, and also I love the robins. They sing at dusk, and I walk out at dusk just to hear them. And I'll say, I love that. Sing that again. You know, let's hear it again. Sing it again, and they will. They like being appreciated. The birds know. The birds get it. They get your energy.
I just wanted to make a comment. When you talked about the hawk, I don't know if anybody noticed, but your fingers, the silhouette of your fingers were on the screen and they look like hawk feathers.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, as soon as
Thank
you
you,
said
Darcy.
it.
See, that's Darcy helping me out, man. I didn't do that on purpose, unconsciously. That's funny. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, watch the birds, watch the animals. I always notice when there's any kind of, because I live out. Well, I live closer to Quebec City than I do to Boston. I'm about an hour from the border of Canada, from the Beauce, if you know Maine and Canada at all, Quebec, and I have lots of animals around me. One time I was offered a job doing radio. I moved to my little town because I was doing radio, and there was a big frequency that covered all of the central Maine and into Canada, and I worked there for 20 years off and on. But I kept getting, and I have been fired. Hey, everybody, this is going to make you feel better. I've been fired 10 times in my life. 8 of them in radio. 8 of them in radio. The other 2 other jobs, but I do tend to say what I think. With respect, So I had this opportunity to go on middays back at the same station, and I didn't really have a good feeling about working with we were supposed to do it as a duo, and if you're going to work with a partner on the radio, you better have some good chemistry going on. I didn't think we had that. So I refused the job, even though I needed a job. And the very moment that I was supposed to be in the interview, a moose walked out on my land, into my garden, and I said, and it was a female moose, and I said, thank you for confirming my decision. So they will give you affirmations, and they'll help you every which way.
A quick sign or story that follows up with the moose giving you a sign. And I wished I would have thought of this yesterday when I gave my presentation when we were talking about signs, but it slipped my mind till now. When my wife was a surgical nurse for 30 years, and the stress had really gotten to her, and it was difficult just to deal with it, and it made me feel so bad. So it took me a while to convince her to retire. So she finally retired, but she had a lot of doubts about it, financial and so on. Well, if I remember it right, the first day that she retired, that night we heard a funny barking outside our window. Now, we live in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's 360,000 people, but if you add the suburbs, almost 1 million. And we live in there, but we have an unusual acreage in town with our own small forest. Well, anyway, we heard this barking, and I don't know, one of us looked out the window, and there was a fox sitting down by the window looking up at us, barking. And we thought, what in the world? And quickly we realized this has to be a sign that you're doing the right thing.
Yep.
Well, that one was great, but then one of her very best friends, some months later, a year later, was going to change jobs, going from surgical nurse to become a school nurse. Much less pay, but much less stress.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, Julie also had, was it her? Oh, it's outside our window again. We hadn't seen a fox but once in 10 years. The day after Julie also changed jobs and left her job, again, we heard some howling and some noises outside the window, and I looked out the window, and a fox was running across our front yard and then ran into our backyard.
Uh-huh.
So that's 2.
Yeah.
So then my retirement came up the next year, and I thought, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to see a fox. And so I did that, and I retired and everything, and that night I kept kind of waiting, and it didn't happen. And so the next day I got up and I'm kind of walking like this, and we're walking our dogs like we always do. And we come back through the back way of our forest area, and I'll be darned if I don't look into our back forest, and there she was. Beautiful fox looking at me, and gave us a good look and ran over and leaped over the fence like nothing.
There you go.
And I just about lost it. And I wished I would remember to tell that story yesterday, because 3 people
okay.
and 3 times the fox. So your moose, the fox,
Yep.
they're very similar.
Yep.
Thank you for that
and the
long
hawk,
story.
right? The hawk flying next to my car when the radio station burned down. That was intense too. And you know, your guides. If you really need some kind of confirmation, your guides will bring you a sign of some kind. You know, obviously your guide didn't know how much it meant to you until you were like, oh, it didn't happen. You better get that fox. Come on, bring the fox back from the other side of the forest and get him in here. Anybody else? I really do. Oh, we got a few here, yes. I really do hope some of you come to my workshop. I would love to spend time with you.
I was going to ask you just what kind of a sign the robin means, because for several years we had a robin in the backyard in front of my husband's lawnmower. Well, then she finally came up and built a nest on the porch 2 different years. Well, then a couple years ago we didn't see her. But this year there's another robin there in the front yard, and she's talking to us just like, and I think this is one of the robins that was born on the front porch, and
Yes.
she's back and talking just like her mother did.
There you go. I think you've got that nailed. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Because birds don't have a real long life, so the daughter came back. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. And robins, to me, are also about joy and happiness. Their song is so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful songs you can hear. So, yeah. Yeah. I love how they get in the highest tree, and so the song goes far and wide. And then there's the woodpecker. It pecks on my house. I have a cedar house. It loves to peck on my house.
I just wanted to share a story about 3 fairies that I saw while on ayahuasca.
Where were you?
What state was that?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Okay.
And we were working with a shaman, and we did ayahuasca. And I was afraid to shut my eyes and do the journey part, so I was like keeping my eyes open and just looking at the rocks and the way that the world waves when you're on ayahuasca.
Okay.
And so, at any rate, I noticed that there was this shimmer, like you were talking about when you saw the gnome.
Gnome, yeah.
And it was against the rocks, and I just kind of focused on it and realized that it was 3 fairies. And they were quite surprised that I was able to see them.
That's wonderful.
And that kind of scared them, and they were like, oh, she can see us, what do we do? And they were freaking out a little bit, and I said, it's okay. And I put out my hand, I said, go ahead, it's all right, you can touch it. And one of them was brave enough to fly over from the rock and touch my finger, and just like an animal that wants to like snatch a piece of food out of your hand real quick, just touch me real quick and
Or
fly
have a
back.
little sniff. What do you smell like?
Yeah, it was really cute.
That's wonderful. That's a great story. And yes, so see, these things can happen, and they're going to happen more and more frequently, especially now that Emerai's here and her brothers and sisters are all here. But really, there's a door opening so that we can have this communication with the elemental kingdom, which we've really been lacking. And now it can thrive, and I encourage you all to go forward and enjoy your elves and fairies and gnomes and whatever else. Wherever you live, there's going to be something you can enjoy. Your birds. Yeah. Any more? Do you have another question back there? Yeah.
I have a son who sees things and has since he's been about 2, maybe younger. How do he hasn't articulated what it is. What do you think a child would be seeing?
His guide, probably. I mean, his guide's going to be right there. And of course, probably all of you know this because you're all really tuned in. But the children that have been born since the harmonic convergence are really, they have different DNA. They're programmed for the new time that's coming. So a lot of them are being misdiagnosed and given drugs they really shouldn't need to take, and so on and so forth. So when you see a gift like that in a youngster, I'm not going to say encourage it, but accept it and make sure he knows that it's normal for him. And then one of the things the Dawn book talks about is finding psychic teachers and healers that can help the young people. That's something I'm going to do if it comes up. If it comes up, I'll do it and I'll help them. Because it's much better to have them talk to somebody who understands that kind of phenomena than have them be drugged into, oblivion. So, help the children. Anyone else? We're good, aren't we? So my workshop is Tuesday morning, and I'm going to be teaching telepathy. I'm going to be teaching how you can work with your guide, and we'll go into a lot of detail about that. And we're going to be using the Dawn book primarily because in the Dawn book there are lots and lots of visualizations and exercises to use to help you raise your personal vibration, which is what it's all about. You raise your personal vibration, you activate more of your brain, and you're able to do more work and connect more with your life guide, who is so ready, so ready to work with you. And there's so many here today, gosh, filled up. And of course the elementals, and even if you live in the city, go into the park and you'll be able to connect with them as well. Thank you all for being here.